Hello scholars, I just thought of running you through the whole research process so that we are on the same page and to give you a gist of what we foresee you doing in your research proposal development through up to the writing of a thesis. So last time we talked about the thesis statement and we talked about what it entails, the position that you need to take. We talked about you stating the background, providing the context, the stage, and the angle from which you're going to view the matters, given that there are many other people who have researched about it. We talked about the title, characteristics of a title at PhD level, and why it is important to answer the question, what is the novelty about my topic, my title? So to continue, I have to run you through. There should be a title. There must be the introduction, the background or the context. You need to provide your thesis statement. And after thesis statement, you need to provide us with the problem statement. What is the problem statement? This is where you clearly state what the main issue is that you want to investigate and address through your research. The simplest way to present your problem statement is simply telling us the what, the how, and the why. In the what, you need to tell us what should be an ideal situation about a particular problem, and that why is this ideal situation compromised? What is causing this compromise? That's very important. So tell us what is the ideal state. Normally, if you're talking about climate, it's supposed to be within a particular range. Or if the temperatures in Zambian context, for example, we know that should range between maybe 13 up to the maximum of, let's say, 38. But where you see the temperatures are going to 50 degrees Celsius, what is causing this an ideal situation? That's where now you bring in the how, explaining, giving the nature, the context of what is driving this change that you have observed, or this anomaly you have observed in terms of the temperature ranges. And then the why is basically convincing the readers, the hearers, why we should be concerned about this problem. What are the possible consequences if this problem remained uninvestigated? But there's one thing that I want to add as a layer. You will find more details from the book, Critical Approaches to Research, Methodology and Publishing. You need to be aware of the type of the research problem you're dealing with, so that you don't do blunders as you go on. There are three types of research problems. We have the conceptual research problems, or which is kind of a basic research, kind of a research problem. So this problem only seeks to clarify some knowledge related anomalies, and you cannot extrapolate it to say, therefore, the government must do ABCD. The government will not do anything because your research is purely academic. Then we have what we call the applied research problem. This is a pragmatic kind of a problem. You have identified it, it's happening on the ground, and through your study, some decision-making processes can be made and change can be seen. Or you can do the change yourself. You do the implementation kind of a research where you bring perspectives with the stakeholders on the ground and solve the problem together. There is a study that was done by Bele, if you want to see it, in Ethiopia, and it's a very good study. Million Bale, he did this study in Ethiopia where he was addressing the problem of deforestation. He started from one phase to the other and he was able to address the problem. I gave you an example of my study. It was an applied type of a problem statement, or the problem that I was addressing. We found the problem of sedimentation. We isolated the sources, the drivers, and we made recommendations, and the government eventually acted after 6 years of lobbying, discussing. But there's another layer that is remaining, to educate the local people in the catchment where I did the study, so that they understand how they are part and parcel of the problem. That way you'd have addressed the problem fully. But that requires an applied research problem, of which I encourage you, if you have the means and ways to address. We want problem statements that can inform decision making, not academic problems only. Then we have the cultural problem statement. There could be certain social norms, cultural practices that you would want to address, and practically, and in terms of, for example, should women just remain at home, cooking, looking after children, managing the home while the husband is away? Or you may ask a question, should women wear slacks in workplaces? Is it culturally acceptable? Is it a good social norm in different geographical contexts? So you may address a problem from those angles, but you need to provide the reason why people should be concerned about that problem. So give us a clear context of what the problem is within the first 200, even 150 to 200 words of your sentence and the problem statement. Give us what the problem is. Explain how that is a problem with citations, convincing the readers to say, indeed, this problem is worth investigating, to qualify, justify why we should be worried. What are the consequences if the problem remains uninvestigated? So after you have said that, you may need to go to another section, which is the aim of the study. Tell us what you aim at in your study. What's the aim of your study? You need to tell us what you want to do, but not just what you want to do, but what are the possible consequences of what you want to do. So for example, if you say to implement a climate change learning program in Kalingalinga, so as to do what? Or so what to do what? So as to ABCD, so as to investigate, so as to develop, so as to change behavior, so as to mitigate this and that. So you will not just say to develop a learning program around climate change in Kalingalinga, and then you end there. I'm just giving that as a very rough and crude example, but you may need to take the statement at a higher level, and at the end of the sentence you say, so as to investigate ABCD, so as to ABCD. If you don't give us the end goal of what you want to do, we are not interested in that. It's a hanging aim of the study, or the purpose of the study. And after the purpose of the study, you need to tell us what the objectives are. What are the objectives of your study? What are the objectives of the study? So you need to give us what the specific objectives are. Are they 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Okay, that is fine. Of course, I don't expect 1 or 2 objectives at PhD level. You may need to go a bit higher, even at masters. So you need to say, okay, on average 4 to 6. But don't be too low and don't be too high, because you are going to overwhelm yourself given the limited time that you have to do. So make sure that as you state these objectives, you are so sure that they are doable, practical, and within specific time they can be achieved. There's one line that I want to add as you talk about objectives. Don't forget to make frequent reference to the critical approaches to research methodology and publishing as you read other books which have been provided in the Google e-library. Make sure you make reference to the main document and the main source book for research methodology, and also other scholars, because the critical approaches is speaking to the context. We are able to relate to what we do. So make sure that if you're using those action verbs in your objectives, you understand why. For example, if you say to determine, why are you determining? What are you going to use to determine? Or to establish? Those are some of the common ways. Or to explore. Why are you exploring? Are you sure we need to explore? Don't we need maybe to analyze or to assess? To examine, to evaluate, research. So that when I ask you a question, why are you evaluating? Why are you investigating? Why are you exploring? Why are you determining? You are able to answer that question. If you can't answer it, you should not even use it. Take note of some phrases are referring to quantitativity, while others are referring to qualitativity. So you need to be very careful in terms of the use of these words. Don't just use them at the higher level, masters or even PhD. You should know why you are exploring. You should know why you are determining. You should know why you are examining. You should know why you are evaluating. That's very important. And after you have stated your objectives, well numbered, well prepositioned, you need to state what your objectives, your research questions are and your hypothesis. That is depending on whether your objectives, some are quantitative, others qualitative. There are some scholars who say, no, you can't mix the hypothesis with research questions. No, that's a misconception. You may actually have the two, depending on the research approach that you're using and the design at the end of the day. If you're using mixed method, you can have qualitative and quantitative objectives in your study, and you may have research questions and research hypotheses. So let's assume that you are working with qualitative research approach. You need to have research questions, and these research questions, each question must be based on a particular research objective. So if there are 6 research objectives, most likely you are going to have 6 research questions. But there are certain times when one research objective can be broken down into 2 or 3 instead of just 1. So it depends on the nature. So if you can break it down, you have to say research question number 3 or 3. You state the research question, or you put a string sentence that shows A, B, C, D, that these are the sub questions that are emerging from this particular research objective. So after you have stated those, make sure that they are well punctuated with research questions. Question marks. Don't forget they are research questions. So these will guide you to understand or to provide solutions to the or responses to the gaps that are existing in your study or in the area of your research interest. If you need to have hypothesis in your study, you need to state likewise. What is an hypothesis? This is a common sense question, but we need to speak to it briefly. An hypothesis is a presumed explanation to a particular phenomenon, which can either be confirmed or be falsified after you have done the analysis. And there are 2 types of hypothesis. We have the null hypothesis and we have the alternative hypothesis. So null shows no connection, no causal link, whereas the alternative shows the relationship or causal link. So you need in your study to work with an alternative hypothesis. Don't work with a null hypothesis, but you test your study against it. So it's either you agree or reject the null hypothesis. So, but when you are stating the hypothesis in your study, always state your alternative, because there is a certain assumed causal link or relationship that you are seeing happening. For example, droughts are significantly influencing crop yields. That's what you are assuming. But when you do the analysis, you'll find that really there is no much influence. And then you make your final conclusion. So you state your alternative hypothesis, but you can either test for or against it, depending on how the findings are going to be in your statistical analysis. That's very important. So again, our hypotheses are not just stated for the sake. You need to check which specific objectives is this now hypothesis trying to confirm or to speak to. That's very important. After you have stated your hypothesis and or research questions, we are expecting that you give us the scoping of your study. What are the boundaries or delimitations of your study? How far are you going? And if you are saying you're going to focus on a particular geographical setting, why that geographical setting and not others? If you say you're going to focus on certain thematic aspects of your research problem or research topic and or title, why those and not the others? You need to justify. In most cases, people just say the study is limited to such and such a place. Why is it limited to just such places? Why are you even excluding other geographical settings? If you are talking about from the thematic point of view, why are you focusing on those thematic areas, neglecting the others or putting aside the others? You need to justify that with some good literature to justify why. That's very important. When you have shown this, you have shown that the background is fairly set. But there's one more aspect which is very important as you do your master's and your PhD. That is the significance of your study. When you are presenting the significance of your study, it does not just mean that this study will contribute knowledge. No. You need to classify what major significances are behind my study. Epistemically, institutionally, or from the policy decision point of view, and from the geographical context point of view. Epistemically, we are talking about what contribution of new insights and knowledge will come on board to bridge up the existing knowledge gaps within the broader science. You need to clearly state that. So when you are writing your sentences, I'm able to tell this is an epistemic contribution, or this is a policy contribution, or this is a geographical or spatial context relevance or significance. So make sure that you have explained the geographical context, you have explained the policy context, you have explained the epistemic context in terms of the significance of the study. These three layers are the ones that, when you blend together, are going to show that this study is very significant. And you need to provide some scientific evidence and literature consultation to show that this is extremely important. So show the epistemic importance or significance of your study. What value will it bring on the table? When you are stating the epistemic significance, sometimes you can foresee the kind of knowledge that will be contributed. And now you can confirm this knowledge, because I've seen that in some dissertation, many theses and dissertation, even when somebody is presenting, they say, this study may contribute or will contribute new knowledge. No, when you're presenting the findings of a thesis, you should say, the study has contributed new knowledge, such as A, B, C, D, state the actual knowledge, which can be confirmed when people read your findings. So if you're able to foresee the key knowledge outputs, you can even state them. We foresee this and that which is novel to this study. After that, you need to state how can your findings potentially inform decision making. Now, you remember the type of your research problem determine whether your study can really contribute to policy decision. Otherwise, don't state it, because we'll ask you what type of research problem were you dealing with. If you fail to explain it, that is an offense. If you're dealing with an applied research problem, yes, you can talk about the issues of policy. Otherwise, don't say it, because that becomes a decoration, and we don't want decorative sentences. You need to know why every sentence is existing. And last but not the least, let us see the significance of that study to the specific geographical area where you're doing it from. If you go to do a study about water scarcity in a particular area which has plenty of water that just goes to waste, then we're saying that how relevant is that topic to that geographical area? So we want to see the geographic or geography-specific relevance of your study. This is the content for the first chapter of your thesis and dissertation. I'll still come back with another short snippet on other sections of your research process development. So we are still going. Make sure that the ideas are cascading in that order, and please don't forget to study the book Critical Approaches to Research Methodology and Publishing. You'll find a lot of insights on how best you can frame your work, but let the structure, the flow, be as explained here. Do not be overtaken. You can also tweak out one or two things, add other aspects that if you are relevant, you're doing your PhD, you're doing your master's. So we expect you to be a co-producer of ideas. Thank you very much, and see you in the next series.